I want to get to China in a little bit, but let's stick with Gaza, but also with Ed's characterization, which was incredibly charitable. I don't know what Ed had for breakfast this morning, but it was a very charitable way, in my view, of characterizing the president's approach, which could also be considered erratic, could also be considered narcissistic. It could be considered uninformed on some fronts. And, to go to your point, we were headed in one direction on dealing with this issue in Gaza until it became too hard. And then there was this attack on Qatar, which seemed to have triggered Trump. And all of a sudden, a new pressure was put on. And within a couple of weeks, we got to okay, there's a hostage deal. And a hostage deal means, in Trump's words to the New York Post on the morning it was announced, an end to 3,000 years of strife in the Middle East. Okay, well, we've talked to lots of experts in this time. You're an expert. You've talked to experts. I don't know anybody who thinks that, maybe we've done number one and number two on this 20-point plan, but numbers 3 through 18 range from incredibly difficult to impossible. And that it's very, very unlikely that this is going to turn into a lasting peace. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to get as much as we can out of it, but for the president to say, "Okay, job done. What's next?" Also puts us in a difficult position when we know each one of these things is going to require months and years of negotiation and political changes and a whole bunch of other things. I don't know. There was a period of euphoria like 3 or 4 days ago, and it seems to me reality is starting to set in. What's your sense of that, Jake?
You'd be probably better positioned to say whether a sense of reality is set in. I certainly saw the euphoria, particularly in the press reaction to what happened here. I think people do believe that this is likely to lead to something much more fundamental in terms of change in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict still now. And part of that is because, President Trump is masterful at packaging and selling progress, the way that he went to the region, to Israel and to Egypt. Part of it is people are hungry for something good to happen, and the fact that there is right now silent guns in Gaza is a good thing. And then part of it is that it's not just President Trump who can have a short attention span on these things, but the media, who can also move on to the next thing and not worry as much about whether the next set of items gets fulfilled here. I agree with you. It is going to be very difficult. I do think that you have an alignment among the regional actors to try to press for progress on the remaining points of this plan that gives some opportunity to at least move the ball further down the track than we are right now. But there are a hell of a lot of basic obstacles, starting with this fundamental question of whether Hamas will actually disarm. And I think that there are signals right now that that is going to be a huge hurdle, a huge challenge. And my hope is that the president's team, that Steve Witkoff, that Jared Kushner, working with Tony Blair and others, that they're going to stay stuck in on this issue and keep trying to make progress on it.
If I can ask one quick follow up on that, picking up on a point of yours before perhaps we shifted to China, whatever questions Ed's got, but you mentioned the regional actors, and whereas I'm not sure how much has changed in the views of Netanyahu or Hamas, and in fact there are reasons to believe that within his party in Israel's right, not much has changed. Within Hamas, not much has changed. It does seem like the regional landscape in the Middle East has changed a lot. Now, part of that is due to Israel picking off Iranian proxies in the region. But part of it is due to the fact that Israel has become kind of an erratic partner of the United States and is seen widely, it's lost a lot of support in the United States, seen widely as an unreliable partner. And that the U.S. is depending more and more on other factors, other forces, other players in the region to play a constructive role. That there's been a kind of a power shift is sort of in the regional politics. And I'm just wondering to what extent you think that's true.
Well, Something that passed with, I would say, pretty little mention is that by executive order, the President of the United States extended a security guarantee to Qatar. A security guarantee in quite stark terms, like we will come defend Qatar against attack. Now, question whether that's something that should get advice and consent of the U.S. Senate, and what the real import of that is. But it's an indicator of these really shifting sands in the Middle East and the extent to which the United States is deepening its diplomatic and strategic relationships because it sees other actors as having significant influence in shaping what will happen now that we are, a couple of years on from October 7th. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, Turkey, the extent to which we are investing in this new leader in Syria and placing some bet that he can actually hold that country together. The historic relationship that we've had with Egypt and Jordan. When you look now at the constellation of actors and how we sit with these countries as partners and think about what is the shape of the modern Middle East and what's it going to take to have a more stable equilibrium going forward. You're right. It's not just a U.S.-Israel conversation, and it's not just us going through the motions with these other countries. They have a real role to play. And of course, the Saudis played this role with France in teeing up this initiative at the UN that the U.S. didn't participate in, which also shows these countries are prepared to act even, without the United States, even in some cases against the wishes of the United States, and so are a very present factor in how we have to think about the shape of the region going.